In our previous tutorial, what we did is we looked at some real spreadsheet basics. What we're going to do in this one is take a look at how we can build up the barbecue model using, again, those same ideas, but just applied in a slightly different way. The first thing you'll need to do then is to download the part completed workbook, which is available here at the top of the section that says the barbecue. So I'm just going to right click on there, save link as, go into my H drive, in my computer science folder, H drive, computer science folder, into year 9, into Game of Life, and at the moment it's called some temporary name. I'm just going to call that barbecue, I think, instead, and click on save. After a few seconds that'll happen. We can then go into Excel, and we can go File, and Open, and Browse, and with a little bit of luck in here we'll be able to find Computer Science, year 9, Game of Life, barbecue. There it is. Okay, so what we've got here is our barbecue spreadsheet, and at the moment, again, this is someone's idea of what this might look like, but he's got a few problems with it, so we're going to fix this together. Before you can make any changes to anything you've picked up from the web, like spreadsheets like this one here, we need to enable it to be edited, otherwise it's going to be locked. You see up at the top of the screen it says protected view, be careful, viruses, problems, protected view. Since this came from me, we're going to have to trust this before we can change it, so we're going to click on enable editing. You'll be able to make changes to it now. So let's take a look at what we've got. So we've got a title up here, and again they do say you can put column headings up here, but you shouldn't use that for titles. Probably good advice actually. Just for today I am going to be a little bit naughty and put a barbecue title up here, so barbecue spreadsheet like that, maybe underline it, keyboard shortcut Control U. That's a handy one to know, and I might make the font a little bit bigger because it's my title, just to make it a little bit more fetching on the page. What I'm also going to do as well is I think I'd like to have a little bit more space between this and this, so I'm actually going to move all these cells down one, another little trick that you can do to neaten everything up. So I'm going to click and hold the left mouse button down here, draw a box around all the cells that have got something in it. I've grabbed a few extras as well, doesn't really matter. I'm just going to grab the border, so you see where my mouse is at the moment, I'm moving it on the border of that area I've selected. That changes the mouse pointer, and I can click, pull that down one, and I'm going to drop that here. Okay, well, what else? Well, before I even start doing anything else, I noticed someone's been changing the size and the heights and the thicknesses of all these cells, and I want to neaten those up. There's two different ways that we can change the height or the thickness or the width of a cell. One of them is I can move the mouse. Let's find a good example. This budget 60 over here. That cell's a bit wider than it needs to be. So one way I could do it is I could come up to the individual column headings that I've got just here, and I can hover my mouse between two headings. You see how the mouse pointer changes? So I can do that. I can then click and I can drag left, or I can click and I can drag right, and it'll make it bigger and smaller. If I make it too small, so I'm going to deliberately shrink this one down, if I make it too small to show the actual value inside the cell, then what Windows will do is it'll draw a little hash symbol instead. It's still worth 60, if I hover the mouse it says 60, but there's just not enough space in there to show that, so I'd have to widen it up. There it goes, that's just wide enough. So that's the first way I could do something. And the same idea works on rows. I could make this row taller, or I could make it a little bit thinner. Slightly faster is to let the spreadsheet software do it for you by going to the area and double clicking. So there you go, and do it again here. Some people, you might look on A1, you might say, right, okay, these all look like they want to be that sort of thickness. Let's just double click on this for a second. How wide would you think it would go? So cosmetically you probably think it's going to come out to about, I don't know, let's have a little orange juice can. There you go, that's about everything in there. So you might on the face of it think it'll go out to there. Let's auto size it. Bing, it goes much bigger. And that's when we notice, look, that it's actually sprung to the biggest thing in that column, which is my title. So for that one, it's more appropriate to manually resize it to what we want. I'm also going to manually resize these as well, so a bit of a double click fest. There we are. Almost there we go. That's all of those ones. I've got a couple left here I could do as well. Let's neaten those up. Looking good. I'm about there now actually, I think. Yeah, I'm happy with those. So that's neatened everything up. At least I can read what I've got. You could also do some more formatting work, so maybe get in here and underline these. We could also, if we want to be really, really pedantic, cost per item is actually should be expressed in pounds and pence. At the moment, the computer treats these as just general numbers, and we can change what we call our data type. It's a programming term. We can change our data type by doing this. I'm going to say that all of these items here, so I'm just clicking and dragging and highlighting them, all of these items here aren't just general items. They're actually, looking through my list, which of these do you think? These are actually currency. These are amounts of money. So I'm going to choose that one. And maybe I'm going to, rather than having it on the right, I could put it on the left, or actually I think maybe the center looks nice and neat as well, just to make it more readable. Quantity required, well, that isn't an amount of money, that's just a number, so I can probably leave that. I might center that up though, so that'll be like that. My overall budget, that's quite important, so I might put that in bold just so people really see it. And maybe that's probably also a currency as well, so I'm going to pop that in there so people know it's an amount of money. We're looking a lot neater. So what do we need to do next in order to work things out? Well, if I know that burgers cost 75 pence each and I want 25 of them, then in order to get the total cost of all the burgers, I'm going to need to write a formula. And hopefully you'll know from your maths lessons that the way to do that is to do this number here times by this number here to get the total. So you might remember from the previous lesson, we said that all spreadsheet formulas start with an equals sign. So I'll start by writing equals. And then what I'm going to do is I could write 0.75 asterisk 25. I could do that, but it's better to actually use these cells here. So I'm going to say that this cell, that's B4, so I could type in B4 times by, that's an asterisk, and then the other one is C4. I could type C4, but it's probably quicker just to click on it instead and let the computer pick it up for me, and I'll hit enter. So that tells me that the total item cost for that is £18.75. I now need to do the same for all these other ones down here. So a couple of ways we could do this. Again, always look for the most efficient way to work, the way that involves you spending the least amount of time to get a good result. It's much nicer to let the computer do it for us. So I could go equals this one, asterisk, this one, enter, another one, equals this one, asterisk, that one, enter. We could do that. We could do that. But it's a slow way of doing it. It's much nicer. If you remember from the previous tutorial, we used that formula replication. It's much nicer to use that feature to actually replicate the formula for us. And we don't need to give it much of an example to work on. Just this one here should be enough. So I've actually got that cell selected. Move the mouse over this little box here, click and hold, pull down to here, and release. And the computer's going to write all those total costs in for me. Well, if I know the individual parts all cost this, for this number of these things, we're working on a barbecue for 40 people, I think we said, then I need to know how much it costs altogether. So to do that, again, I'll show you a couple of ways we could do it. One way, slow way, would be to do equals, and then this one, plus this one, plus this one, plus. I could do that, and I can add those all up. That's not the right answer because I didn't finish it. Or other thing, instead, use our old friend AutoSum, which is like this. So I'm going to click and hold the first item, go all the way down to the last item I want, select one more, an empty space, that's where the result's going to go, and then come up here into the top right-hand corner and choose AutoSum, and that'll top them up for me. I think while we're here, just to be really neat, I'm going to center that up. I think the total's quite important, so I'm going to put that in bold. What I could do, just to show it's really important, I could put a border around the outside of that cell. That would look nice and neat. You get lots of different types of border. I could just highlight the bottom bit of the cell, just the top, just the left, just the right. But I think drawing a box around the outside would look quite nice. Or maybe a thick line. I haven't had this one, I think. So that when I click away, you'll see it's got that thin black line around it. And I can give this a nice label, which will be something like total costs. And I can pop that in there so that I can see more clearly that it's to do with that number. I think I'm going to right align that piece of text like so. I'll probably make that bold as well. Keyboard shortcut, Control and B. So I've got my total costs here, and I've got my total budget here. And one of the things that's, again, very powerful about the spreadsheet is you can now play around with your numbers a little bit. So at the moment, the big problem I've got is that it's going to cost me more than I've allowed for in my budget to be able to make this work. And I could actually get an overall balance by calculating it on the fly. I could say that the balance of the money that I've got left, let's just neaten that up, is going to be equal to my budget, there it is, take away the amount of money I'm actually spending, and enter. And yeah, it turns out I'm running on a bit of a loss here. I'm actually at minus £18. So if I was organising this barbecue, I'd have to pull a £20 note out of my pocket. I wouldn't get a lot of change once all my friends have chipped in. So what could we do to straighten all of that out? Well, what we could do is I could say, perhaps, rather than buying the the cans of orange juice that are £1.20 each, maybe I can get some cheaper orange juice. Maybe I can get stuff for 50 pence, 0.5 pence instead. How does that help? Well, if we feed our guests the cheaper orange juice, then that's not so bad. I'm only £9 under now. Maybe rather than asking everyone to chip in so we end up with £60, maybe I could say, look, folks, we need to contribute a little bit more. Maybe it'd be nicer if we tried to get it up to 74, a bit odd number, £75 instead. That'll be a bit more like it. And I've even got some change then out of it, so I can have some of their money back. That would be a nice thing to do as well. But as I do these things, as I change these numbers that occur just here, it automatically recalculates every time I hit enter, which is what makes spreadsheets really powerful. I'm actually just going to undo this. A couple of ways you can undo. Another click up here, that's fine. I also quite like Control and Z. That works as well to undo, just to put things back to how they were before I started changing things. I'm going to leave it like this. Okay, so what else can we do with our spreadsheet model? Well, one of the other things that might be nice to do would actually be to have it give us a sentence which tells us whether we can enjoy our barbecue or whether we need to collect more cash from everybody else. So I'm going to write a little formula in just here, which is called using an if statement, which you'll have seen before, hopefully, in Python. This is how we do it. I'm going to start by typing an equals sign, because formulas always start with an equals, and I'm going to say if. Okay, and as I start to type that, Excel already actually gives me a little bit of a hint as to what we're heading towards. It says if, okay, so that's going to check whether or not something is true, and it'll do one thing if it's true and one thing if it's false. So that's quite helpful. So I'm going to type an open brackets next, and the computer gives me a bit more of a prompt. First of all, it wants my logical test. So a logical test is where you compare two things together. And the logical test that I want is this. I want to say that if the balance is less than 0, then we're going to say we need more money. Otherwise, we're going to say let's party. So let's give that a go. So I said that if the balance, so that's cell G5, I just click on it. If G5 is less than, that's the one you get when you hold down the Shift key and you push the key to the right of the letter M, is less than 0. Then type a comma next. You see there's actually a little comma on there as well. So comma, now some speech marks because I'm typing a string. Again, computer science concept. So if the money is less than 0, then we should say need more money, like that. Make sure you close your speech marks as well, so you close the string off. Then another comma, and you'll see as I'm typing the commas, the next part I'm talking about actually comes in bold as well. So again, the computer wants to help us. More speech marks again. And then this is the let's party. Maybe an exclamation mark as well. There we are, how about that? Speech mark to finish, and then finally a closed bracket, because I opened a bracket back here, look. Okay, so that's a really, really nice little if statement. Let's hit enter, boink. And so because at the moment it says that our balance is minus £18, we need more money. If I increase my budget temporarily to £100, then we get the conclusion that we can afford to party, and we've still got £20 change left afterwards. I'm just going to Control Z that again, like so. So that gives us the ability to do things a bit like that. There's a few other loose ends we could look at here. Let's just take a second and look at Born to Code and see how we've done. So we've got, what about drinks quantities? We've got average we could do as well. That might be quite useful actually. We could take a quick look at that, I think. What else have we got in here? 2 seconds. Conditionals and if statements. Yeah, we'll take a look at these things down here because these are quite handy to know as well. So sometimes when you're working with numbers, it might be nice to know the average of a particular set of numbers, and it might also be nice to see the maximum and minimum values. So if I took the maximum value from my total items, looking down this list because it's quite short, I'd expect the maximum to be 27 because that's how much I'm spending on Coca-Cola. That's my most expensive item, and my cheapest item, my minimum value, that's this one here at 7.50. Let's just look at how that works using a formula, and you'll find a little bit later on this will become quite useful. Again, if we had thousands of items of data, being able to write a very, very short formula to get a result is really, really useful. So to get an average, here's what we've done. I'm going to put in some headings so I know what I'm looking at. So average item cost, max cost, min cost, there we are, cost like that. Was there another one as well? I think there was a count as well. I might do that in a second as well, see how we do for time. So to get an average, what you do is this. You type in equals, because formulas always start with an equals, then average, like that, and even the computer says, I think I know where you're going with this. Look, it calculates the mean of a bunch of different cells. Then we're going to do an open bracket, and there's a couple of ways you can actually do an average. I could go and do it like this. I could say I want D4, comma, D5, comma, that one, comma, that one, comma, that way. I could do it that way, close bracket. Hit enter, that would work. So the average of all of these is 1577. Could do it that way. Another way of doing it is also using average still. Average, open brackets. What I could do is I can click and drag and select all of these cells like that, and then do a closed bracket. You'll see that the computers use that nice shorthand that we've seen before doing AutoSums. So it's D4 colon D8. So that means all the cells from D4 to D8. That works very nicely as well. It's probably my preferred way of doing it. And then for max and min, there's actually two very convenient built-in functions to do that as well. One of them is called max. Okay, so max, open bracket, grab all of these, close bracket, like so. And there's another one which is min. Tells you the smallest of a set. Enter. And that tells you the cheapest item as well. It always live track that for you. We could also look at the how many different items we need to buy in our shopping list. It'd be nice to know that I need to go and collect, what have we got here, five items, 1,000 items if it was really big. So I can use count, and the same idea here. And again, I'm just going to grab those, enter, and funny enough we have 5 items. And as I expand that list, it would give me an ever bigger set of figures to work with. So that gives you all the individual ingredient parts that you need in order to be able to solve a lot of the problems here. I think, off the top of my head, that there's one more part of this, which is about rounding numbers off, and also using Excel to calculate a ratio as well. Now, I don't want to give you every single answer in here, because I'd like for you to work this out for yourself. But in the badge task, if you look around here, then you might look, I think it's here actually, then you might find there's some work there that you need to do with ratios based on people's drinks preferences. So I'm going to let you have a little play with that and see how you get on. And I'd also like you to think about the silver badge task, which looks at using some different items and different quantities and a different budget as well. So have a little play around and see how you get on, and I'll see you in the next tutorial.